Hello Simmers, welcome to my channel Simsational Builds. In case you don't know, my name is Deb and thanks for joining me today for a very special speed build. Being the typical Gen Y slash millennial that I am, I absolutely love Harry Potter and I thought I'd do a very special Harry Potter build for you today. I'm working on the Beauxbatons Carriage. Now Beauxbatons is a rival magical school, a wizarding school that's located in France, and they appeared in the fourth book, which was Goblet of Fire, when they were holding the Triwizard Tournament. Now, described in the book, the Beauxbatons Carriage is the way that the students from the Beauxbatons school actually arrived at Hogwarts. So from the book it says, as the gigantic black shape skimmed over the treetops of the Forbidden Forest and the lights shining from the castle windows hit it, they saw a gigantic, powder blue, horse-drawn carriage the size of a large house soaring towards them, pulled through the air by a dozen winged horses, all palominos and each the size of an elephant. Now, who wouldn't want to build that in The Sims, right? So there actually hasn't been that many people that have built this one so far. There are a few, of course, on the gallery, but I thought I'd do my take on it as well. So I'm obviously not going to be building something the size of a large house, because in The Sims it's going to look absolutely ridiculous even if I do create some elephant-sized horses at the front of it. And I haven't done a dozen winged horses because my lot simply isn't big enough. And again, I think it would just be a little bit overpowering. So I sort of scaled it down a little bit to what I imagined it to be. Now, again, the descriptions don't give you that much in the book, but I sort of imagined the Beauxbatons school to be very that French Rococo style. So really elaborate. You sort of think of the Palace of Versailles, even though that's probably more French Baroque, but that's sort of what I imagined the school to be. They're very extra, these Beauxbatons. So that's sort of what I imagined it, and that's why I created the carriage to have that really detailed, really elaborate sort of style, because in my head that's what I think the school would look like as well. So I created quite an unusual roof for this one here. Again, being that it's supposed to be a carriage and not a house per se, I didn't want to give it just a typical roof. So I've done sort of 3 layers, 3 levels, as you can see on the sides. And then I used these dormers from, I think they were from Get Famous, in this blue color, which matched the rest of the carriage itself. And I created sort of these 3 levels or 3 layers by sizing it down and raising them up so that they created almost like a flowing roof, which personally I think looks a little bit more like a carriage roof. I wish I could have done more like a Victorian style carriage. You would need to sort of Google it to see what I'm talking about here, because they were very ornate, but there really isn't much in The Sims that would have allowed me to create that style. I just simply don't have enough items to, be able to manipulate. I mean, someone might be able to do that perfectly, but I just happen not to be that someone. But I thought I'd do it this way instead. So this build, especially on the outside of it, uses mostly Get Famous, Realm of Magic, and a lot of the elements are from Cats and Dogs as well. So the wheels, I used windows, as you may have seen a little bit earlier. And I used those, like the ship steering wheel, whatever they're called, sorry, escapes my mind at the moment, to create the spokes of it as well and create the gold element. So those items are both from Cats and Dogs, but most of the other items are either from, like I say, Get Famous, especially all those elaborate details. The not the round window, that's from Realm of Magic, but the elaborate doors and those big, awnings as well. They're from Get Famous also. So a lot of the other pieces, I mean, I used quite a few packs for this build, and I'm not one to do limited pack builds very often because I find it limits me too much and I don't create the vision that I have in my head by using limited packs. I like to be able to use all the tools in my arsenal to be able to make it as accurate as I see in my own head. So for example, so far on this one, in addition to those other ones, that couch at the front is from Dine Out, I think. The columns are from Get Together, and on the interior I also use, and there's a couple of elements from Discover University as well. And when I create the horses in the front, when I create the wings, the wings are items from the Vampires pack. So I do use quite a few different bits and pieces, but I think, using those elements, they all sort of tie in really well together and it creates quite a cohesive look at the end of the day. it was pretty difficult to make it look like an actual carriage and not like a little square house. And of course, in the books, in the story, this is, I assume it would be like a small apartment complex, you know, using magic, of course. There should be beds for them all to be able to actually fly and stay there for the time it would take to fly from France to Scotland, where Hogwarts is. But of course, again, being that I'm not actually making it the size of a small house, the size of a large house in the description, it's more like it's actually a tier 2 tiny house, and it is fully functional. There is a single bed, so it's only made for one person or one sim to sleep in. But it does have all your amenities. I've managed to create a fully functional 2-tile bathroom, which you'll see how I create soon. That required a lot of fiddling, which is not in this video, to actually make it functional. I had to actually minimize or size down the sink and push it into the wall slightly so that the shower over the top of it would actually be functional. But in the end, I got it all to work. So it's got a sink, shower and toilet all in there, all functional as well. So as I'm going on, just working on the kitchen here. So this is all from Realm of Magic. Like I say, most of the items on the interior are. I just realised that the flooring I use is actually from the Jungle Adventures pack as well. So that's probably the only item from that pack. So if you don't have that one, that's definitely not imperative. You can choose any other wooden flooring and it would be absolutely fine. But I kept on with that, like I say, that sort of Baroque Rococo style, especially with those really grand window coverings with the grand curtains there. And it's, funnily enough, worked really well with the Realm of Magic pack, which also had that sort of more ornate detailing a lot of the time. So I find that it worked really well. The back here also is functional in the final build. I had to fiddle around with that a little bit also, but I thought it'd be nice to have a little sort of a balcony at the back of it, if you can imagine flying through the air and just sort of sitting at the back as you know, fly through the clouds. I mean, I would want to sit there. But hey, that's just me. But yeah, I found it interesting when I was looking through when I was doing my research on what it should actually look like and what it was described as in the books, rather than just going from memory. The Beauxbatons was actually, apparently, according to the wiki fandoms and things like that, Beauxbatons was established in 1290. And the architecture of that time, that was basically the Middle Ages. That was still during the Middle Ages and medieval period. So the buildings and castles and things like that, they were like fortresses. They weren't these beautiful, ornate, pretty fairy tale castles as you can sort of would imagine both Hogwarts and, Beauxbatons to be. Maybe Durmstrang would be something like that fortress, but I didn't look into that, to be honest. But yeah, so, I mean, castles and things like that have always been updated over the years and, made, even so, for example, the Palace of Versailles started as just like a hunting lodge. And over the many hundreds of years, it was built upon, added upon, and, eventually became the huge palace as we know it as today. So I would like to think that maybe Beauxbatons was originally that big, overwhelming medieval castle, but I'd like to think that over the years it had, some of that more French influence come in and become a little bit more of that, like I say, that Rococo Baroque style, but that's just my own imaginings anyway. I think it's actually been described as a chateau. Yeah, here we go. It says, the Palace of Beauxbatons was a beautiful chateau surrounded by majestic gardens and fountains magically created out of the surrounding mountains, and stood for over 700 years. In the dining chamber, wood nymphs serenaded the students while they ate, and at Christmas the hall was adorned with great glittering, non-melting ice sculptures. It was said that the stunning castle and grounds of this prestigious school was part funded by alchemist gold, for Nicholas and Pernell Flamel met at Beauxbatons in their youth, and a magnificent fountain in the middle of the school's park, believed to have healing and beautifying properties, was named after them. So that is just from the Harry Potter wiki. So again, back in when it was apparently founded in 1290, they weren't really French chateaus as we imagine them today. I've looked this up. They are more castles and, like I say, more that sort of fortress style. So again, it's all fiction at the end of the day, but we can get very serious about our Harry Potter here, and I don't want to offend anyone either. But so basically, I just sort of took my own artistic influence into it at the end of the day. So here I'm just doing the horses at the front of the carriage. Like I said, I'm only doing 6 rather than the full dozen. And to create the wings, I used items from the Vampires pack. So because they're not technically flying through the air, I used the gargoyles that have the folded wings because I wanted to use the bat wings, which are the couple of horses that have got the open wings, but they would just clip into one another and I couldn't make it look reasonable without them actually clipping. And I have had to use the tool mod only for a couple of the wings and the one horse that's sort of rearing at the front, because I wanted it to have that effect that they were like, you know, alive, as much as we, you know, don't have horses in the Sims 4, much to my disappointment, after Sims 3. But anyway, moving past that, I have had to use tool for a couple of them to fix up the wings because I had to size up. You know, using the normal size up just made them either too small or too large, so I had to do it in between. And also I had to change the angle of the bat, which was creating the open wings of the horse in front. So I'm just going to swing into live mode, now, to just fiddle around with tool. And don't you hate it that whenever you go to playtest something, whenever you go into live mode, it's always bloody raining, or someone dies, or something catches on fire, or something stupid happens. So when I was actually doing this video, I was assuming it would be all nice and sunny. I didn't check it beforehand. But no, there had to be a downpour, a thunderstorm, when I was trying to fiddle around. But I just wanted to do it quickly rather than muck around with, you know, changing the weather and things like that, or waiting for it to get clear. So here you can see I'm just changing the angle of the bat in the front with tool and just sizing up the wings of the other horses. I also lowered the one at the front to remove that sort of pedestal that it was standing on as well. But yeah, I was really lucky and really quite fortunate that the horses that I used were just child's toys that were sized up like 19 times or something. And when you actually, if you actually play with this build, you will notice that the horses are huge. They don't look huge compared to the build, but when you actually put a sim next to it, they're probably larger than elephants would be in real life. But I think it looks pretty good at the end of the day anyway. So I just did a couple little bits of landscaping around it just to sort of make the build blend into the world itself. Now I built this in Glimmerbrook, again, just because it's a magical world and it's got quite a nice surrounding area as well. But the landscaping really isn't anything to speak of. It's just to blend it in and just to make the build look a little bit more realistic. But here it is anyway. It is, like I say, fully functional tier 2 tiny house. I have it available for download from the gallery, and my ID is blondie/deb or Simsational build. One word. I tried changing the name of the build. The gallery just isn't playing ball with me, but here's some final images. I do hope you enjoyed the speed build today. I hope you had some fun because I know I did as well. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below, and I would love if you would give this video a like and subscribe to my channel because your support really means the world. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.